Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the Sleep Doctor. Today, I want to dive into a topic that I've never really talked about before on this channel. And I'll be honest with you, it's one of those topics my patients do not always want to hear about. But the truth is, it's one of the biggest reasons we can struggle with sleep as we get older. The problem I'm talking about is loneliness. Yeah, loneliness. It's something that affects millions of people, especially seniors, and it can have a huge impact on your sleep. So today, I'm going to walk you through the reason why loneliness can be so devastating to our sleep. Warning, there is a little biochemistry involved here, but more importantly, what you can do about it. Let's start by clearing something up. Loneliness is not just about being alone. You can be in a crowded room or even at a family gathering and still feel deeply lonely. From a scientific standpoint, loneliness is actually a signal. Just like hunger tells you it's time to eat, or pain tells you something's wrong with your body, loneliness is your brain's way of saying, hey, you are missing something critical here, human connection. This goes back to our evolutionary biology. Humans evolved as social creatures. In ancient times, being part of a group meant survival. You had protection, you had food, and you had support. Being left out or separated was actually dangerous. So our brains developed loneliness as a kind of alarm system, pushing us to seek out connection. And here's the fascinating part. Loneliness actually lights up the same areas of the brain as physical pain. Let me repeat myself. Loneliness activates the same areas of the brain as physical pain. That is how seriously your brain takes it. And that part has a huge impact on your sleep, which we're going to talk about a little later. Interestingly, there are a few different types of loneliness. There's emotional loneliness. This is the absence of close bond like a spouse or a best friend. There's social loneliness. This is when you don't have a broader network, a group of friends, coworkers, or neighbors to interact with. Then there's existential loneliness. This one's a bit deeper. It's that feeling of being misunderstood, invisible, or fundamentally separate from others, even if you're not technically alone. It's also important to say, loneliness is subjective. Some people live very solitary lives and feel perfectly content. Others can be surrounded by family and friends and still feel painfully lonely. That's why it's different from social isolation, which is simply the objective fact of having few or no social contacts. Now, let's talk specifically about seniors. Research shows that up to 1 in 5 older adults experience chronic loneliness. And when I say chronic, I do not mean that you just feel lonely one evening because maybe you didn't get a phone call. That's normal. I mean an ongoing, persistent feeling of being cut off, invisible, or unneeded. Why does this happen so much as we age? Number 1, retirement. For decades, your job may have been more than just a paycheck. It was a structure, purpose, daily conversation, and social connection. Number 2, family moving away. Our kids grow up, and often they move across the country, or even across the world. Visits may be infrequent, rushed, or tied to holidays. Number 3, the loss of loved ones. As we age, we lose spouses, siblings, and lifelong friends. Social circles shrink naturally, and grief compounds the loneliness. Number 4, declining health or mobility. Physical limitations can prevent you from going out, seeing friends, or even talking on the phone if hearing loss is an issue. And hearing loss is a huge one. I have patients tell me they would rather withdraw from social gatherings than struggle to follow conversations. Put all this together, and it's easy to see why seniors are so vulnerable to emotional, social, and existential loneliness. And unfortunately, loneliness does not just affect your mood, it takes a direct toll on your sleep. This is where the science gets really interesting. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo, one of the pioneers in loneliness research, showed that loneliness actually activates your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system. Think about that. Even when you are perfectly safe in your own home, if you're chronically lonely, your body acts like you are under threat. Your cortisol, that stress hormone, goes up. And cortisol has a direct impact on your sleep. Normally, cortisol is highest in the morning, helping you wake up, and then it gradually drops throughout the day so you can wind down and sleep at night. But when loneliness keeps cortisol elevated, it's like your brain and body are stuck in daytime mode. That means you feel wired instead of sleepy. Your heart rate and blood pressure stay high, your muscles stay tense, your brain stays alert instead of calming down. Here's the other kicker. Cortisol and melatonin, your sleep hormone, work like a seesaw. When cortisol is high, melatonin is usually low. So even if you want to feel sleepy, your body's not producing enough melatonin to let you drift off. The result? You may struggle to fall asleep. You wake up more often, and you sleep less restoratively. In fact, studies show lonely people experience less deep sleep and less REM sleep. So even if you sleep for 7 or 8 hours, you may wake up feeling tired. And here is the worst part. It's a two-way street. Loneliness makes sleep worse, and poor sleep also makes loneliness worse. When you're sleep deprived, the emotional centers of your brain, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, don't function as well. That makes you more sensitive to rejection or social exclusion. You might misinterpret a neutral comment as something negative. You might feel people are ignoring you, even when they're not. Plus, poor sleep makes you less likely to want to socialize in the first place. You feel too tired, too irritable, too withdrawn. So you avoid phone calls, invitations, or even casual conversations. And when you're not engaging with others, you deepen that loneliness. Another big one, sleep deprivation lowers empathy. So you may not pick up on other people's emotions as well, which makes it harder to connect. Others may even perceive you as distant or uninterested, which pushes them further and further. Finally, chronic poor sleep increases negative thinking, what us clinical psychologists call cognitive distortions. So you might start telling yourself things like, nobody likes me, or I don't belong. Even if it's not true, your tired brain convinces you that it is. And suddenly, you're lonelier than before. I hope I've been able to shine light on this issue. Loneliness hurts your sleep. Poor sleep worsens your loneliness, and round it goes. But the good news is there are ways to break the cycle. But before I get into that, do me a favor, hit the like button and subscribe. By supporting the channel, I get to keep making great content just like the video you're watching now. And while you're at it, check out my website, sleepdoctor.com. You'll find tons of resources there, including articles, product reviews, and tools to help you get your best night's sleep. I'll leave a link down below. Okay, let's talk about solutions. While I cannot promise that you'll never feel lonely again, because loneliness is a normal emotion, I can give you 3 steps to help minimize its impact on your sleep. Step number 1, admit that there's a problem. This is the hardest step for many people. We don't like admitting that we're lonely. It feels embarrassing or weak. But remember what I said earlier, loneliness is like hunger or pain. It's a signal. Ignoring it does not make it go away. If you're in denial about your loneliness, that just makes it much more difficult to treat or solve for. It is also really important to be honest with yourself about how you're feeling, because sometimes loneliness can actually be a symptom of depression. For example, if loneliness is paired with a loss of interest in things you once enjoyed, like hobbies, time with friends, or even food and entertainment, that is a red flag for depression. Likewise, irritability, numbness, frequent crying, or a flat mood are common in depression, but not typical of situational loneliness. If this sounds like you, I encourage you to seek help via either a therapist, your doctor, or a spiritual leader, because your loneliness in this case has a different root cause. Step number 2, make socializing a priority. You've probably heard before that socializing is important for your health, and that is absolutely true. In fact, some of the healthiest super-agers out there, folks in their 80s with the mental sharpness of people decades younger, tend to be, you guessed it, highly social. They don't isolate themselves. They stay engaged, curious, and connected. So here's what I want you to remember. Your sleep is yet another reason to make meaningful connection a real priority in your life. And I don't mean this to be overwhelming. Small steps count. Things like joining a club, picking up a hobby, setting a regular walking routine with a neighbor or friend. I also want to acknowledge that I know this is not always easy. Especially if you have mobility challenges or if your family lives far away, socializing can feel like a big hurdle. That's why I encourage people to explore tools like Zoom. Zoom is a video conferencing app, and it can be a lot better way to connect with people than just a phone call. It's free, it's simple, and if my 90-year-old aunt can learn how to do it, I promise you can too. Once you're on it, the possibilities open up. Chatting with your children, reconnecting with old friends, joining a book club or religious study group, all from the comfort of your home. And remember, it does not have to be huge events that keep you connected. In fact, it's the small, regular moments like a 10-minute phone call every day that really add up. I would love to hear from you too. If you have found a social activity that works well for you, please share them in the comments below. Your ideas might be exactly what another person in this community needs to hear. Step number 3, reframe your loneliness. The truth is, loneliness is a normal human feeling. Every single one of us experiences it. So if you've been feeling lonely, please know there's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. What matters is how you respond to that feeling. And here's where I want to shift your perspective. Loneliness and even being alone can sometimes be a gift. Many of us have spent years, sometimes decades, defined by our relationships with others, raising kids, supporting a spouse, working with colleagues, or even serving our communities. In that process, it was easy to forget about the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. So instead of seeing time alone only as something negative, I encourage you to use it as time for you. Read, learn something new, listen to music, care for a pet or even a plant. Reflect on your day, plan tomorrow, or just sit quietly with your thoughts. These moments are not wasted. They can be deeply restorative. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying you should avoid people or pretend loneliness doesn't hurt. It does. And I strongly encourage you to keep building a social life that feels balanced and fulfilling. But what I am saying is, don't fear being alone. When you meet loneliness with acceptance, it loses some of its power to stir up stress and cortisol in your body. And if you find those feelings of loneliness creep in right before bed, there is a very practical tool that you can use: breathing techniques. Just a few minutes of mindful breathing can lower your heart rate, calm your nervous system, and prepare your body for sleep. Because remember, loneliness activates your sympathetic nervous system. And the breathing techniques I've taught you in the past will help reverse this. As a reminder, I've made a video all about the best breathing techniques for sleep, and you can find it right here. So remember, you're not alone in feeling lonely. You are part of a community, you are worthy of connection, and you have tools, both social and personal, that can help you sleep better and feel better. This is Dr. Michael Bruce, the Sleep Doctor, wishing you sweet dreams.